Did you know that despite making up 50% of sellers, women hold just 30% of the sales leadership roles? It's not a pipeline problem. That's a promotion problem. Welcome to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, where we make the new rules of success for high-performing women in sales. And I'm your host, Amy Evans, sales leader turned executive coach. After 25 years in the trenches at Salesforce, EDP, and startups, I now help ambitious sales managers step into second-line leadership roles. If you are ready to lead with authority, earn what you're worth, and make a bigger impact, you are in the right place. Click follow so the next episode will be waiting for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Women in Sales Leadership. I am really fired up about today. And when I was thinking about this topic, the thing that really struck me is how real it is and how much I struggled with this in my life and in my career. And what we're going to be discussing today, what I'm going to be discussing with you, is this concept of investing in yourself and giving yourself permission to invest in yourself. And, some of this stuff can be small things that you do that work for you, things that support your mental well-being, things that support your relationships, things that support your joy and spark and creativity. What can happen, and what happened to me when I was leading sales teams, and I did that for over 12 years as a leader, and then before that, I was an individual contributor, seller. That pressure just never lets up. And whether you're a sales leader or you're a CEO or a founder, there is an endless amount of stuff you could be doing on any given day, either work stuff or the home stuff or the whatever other stuff, kid stuff, family stuff, the list goes on and on. It never ends. But within that, nothing about you has remained the same since you began your career. If you just think about the past 6 months alone, and if, we're about to be at the end of the year, and we'll talk about reflection soon, but even thinking about where were you in January of this year, and where are you now? There's been a journey. There's been an evolution. Things have happened. You have had to grow, adapt, adjust, and change in order to meet whatever moment was showing up for you, whether those moments were work moments, relationship moments, family moments, children, what have you, right? Stuff is happening to us at all times that we have little to no control over. And when I think about investing in myself and how that correlates, it's this concept of, we're still growing and we're still learning. And I think that's really some grace that we need to give ourselves, which is this idea that we are still growing, we are still learning. And guess what goes along with that? Trying stuff and having it not work. Experiments that don't work and they don't produce the result you thought it would, or that you hoped it would. Not a failure, just didn't produce the result you wanted. Failure is an entirely different idea. But this concept of growth, and that you're going to be growing every single day. And the more you welcome that and choose to acknowledge that, the better you'll be. When I was maybe about 7 or 8 years into my career, definitely on the early side of leadership, I had no grace, zero grace for myself. If I made a mistake, oh man, could have been a typo, could have been any kind of work mistake, specifically work mistakes. If I made a work mistake, I was, ruminating. I would lay in bed at night, and that would, that deal that got lost that I forecasted, it would keep me up at night. And I would replay all of the things that I did. I would replay the things that I didn't do. And I would just spin around the drain of just loathing, honestly, about how could I have made such a mistake? Now, here's the reality. Like, their mistakes are going to happen. And I guess the only beautiful thing that you can say about it, and this is, I'm not trying to make it sound like things that happen that are bad, like, oh, there's always a bright side, or, oh, there's always a silver lining. Like, that is just freaking annoying. The truth is, when you process and you give yourself a chance to really step back, and this requires you to step away from all the stuff, like put the phone down, right? And go be with whatever happened. And the questions that you can look at for yourself are like, what was out of my control? And be really straight with yourself about that. Like, what was truly out of your control? And then what could you control next time? Next time, not in this past, because the beautiful thing about the past is that it's over with, it's done with, it's gone. You can't do a thing about the past except admire it. And spending time admiring the past is, I don't know, doesn't serve you generally when you're trying to process challenges and growth. The one thing that comes back to me is, that introspection, that reflection, when you give yourself space to do it and without judgment, like, hey, I tried something, it didn't work right. I tried something and I was worried that this thing would happen, and then it did happen, right? There's just learning in that. And for so many years, I had that rumination. I would ruminate over the tiniest stuff, like, oh shit, I had to typo in the email. I sent it to the wrong person, a lot of email related things. And every mistake I made, I would just feel this like, oh, it was like being in the principal's office and somebody had brought me in and told me what a crummy job I was doing, because I was supposed to be perfect. I was supposed to not make any mistakes. And this conversation isn't about perfection, because that is just an illusion. It's just an illusion. What's real, though, is growth. And some of the growth is learning what you can let go of and surrender to the I can't control that part. And then there's the growth of what can I control? And am I ready to acknowledge that I have a choice at all times? At all times, I have a choice, and you have a choice, which is you can keep doing what you're doing. You can keep trying to figure it out. You can keep powering through. You can keep just like, I'll figure it out somehow, which is how you've gotten to where you are. You've figured stuff out and you have that ability to figure things out. Or do you think it might be time to get some support and invest in yourself? And when I think about investing in yourself and what this conversation really is about, it's about your growth. It's about your development. And that can look like all kinds of different things. When I think about what it looked like for me, my first journey into real development and growth, personal development, was one that started in 2004. Oh my gosh, that was a long time ago now. And I was fresh out of graduate school, and, I was just fresh in general. Fresh in general. And, but what's so unique about that is that I was like, what else is there? Okay, great. I got this job. I went and got my MBA. Now they're going to give me the promotion. Like, what else? What else is there? And so I had an opportunity to go to a personal development seminar. It was a weekend long thing, 3 days. And it was my first time since I was in college that I really invested in myself. And I remember being so scared to do it. I remember feeling like, oh my gosh. And I think this course was like, I don't know, $300. At that time for me, $300 was a lot of money. And I really struggled with like parting with this money. I was not afraid to do the work. It wasn't the work. Well, the work scared me a little bit because I knew I had to confront things that I probably hadn't confronted in my life. But it was this concept of like, I'm about to spend money on not food, not rent, not servicing, my student loans or my car payment, all these other financial obligations that I had. I was about to spend money on me. I was about to spend money on growing myself and learning something about myself. And if you want to be a better leader, the place that you begin is not with other people. It's working on you. You've got to lead yourself first. So I can't believe I actually spent the money because it was out of character for me to do that because I was so, really worried all the time about how much money I had and if I had enough money, and very, very conscientious about that, having put myself through college and put myself through graduate school and, taken on a lot of obligation and commitment financially for college debts to do that. So here I am. I'm presented at this seminar with this like, hey, it's personal development. You work on relationships. You work on your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others. And it sounded all super, super squishy and fuzzy. But somehow this like spoke to me because all the education I'd had up to that point was this, academic stuff, right? I learned all the science stuff that I learned in undergrad, in MBA school. I learned, some things. I have opinions about MBAs, MBA programs, but mine was really, it taught me how executives think, which was an expensive lesson. I think I could have read a few books and probably gotten away with that. So ask me another time how I feel about MBAs. And if you want to go, I'm not going to tell you not to, but have a real specific reason that you're going to earn your MBA. I was doing it at a time when everybody was doing it, and it was supposed to be this path that like shoved you up in your earning potential. And it's just not the case anymore. I also wanted some business education. So, all right, I'd gone through this academic route, but what I'd never worked on, I'd never had any exposure to in my growth and development was like personal development, like me. How do I deal with me? How do I deal with the things that hold me back? How do I deal with other people, right? Like this is stuff that you deal with every day. So of course I spent the money and I go spend the weekend at this seminar, and to say that my mind was blown is a complete and total understatement. The impact that seminar had on my life, this 3 days, $300 or approximately that, I guess, like within a year or within 6 months, I ran a half marathon. I'd never run any significant distance before. I got a big promotion at work, like doubled my income. And I had the courage to buy my first home. All within 6 months after finishing this thing. Boy, I feel like that few $100 was really worth it, right? I was a transformed person, and the way that I was transformed in was like what I thought about myself and what I saw as possible for myself, what I understood I wanted for myself in my life, and how to interact and lead not just me, which is my first and foremost. Like if you're going to be a leader, you got to lead yourself, but also how to be in human relationships, because all the work we do, if you really boil it all down, we have all this spreadsheets and other crap. It's really relationships with our teams, relationships with ourselves, with everybody around us, our clients, and so on. You get it. So I invested this money, and that was like my first ever investment. And then a few years later, I'm like, my career was progressing, and I kept getting progress and promotions and job changes. And once I'd kind of broken this seal on giving myself permission to invest in myself, I was willing to do it again. And so I continued taking seminars and courses with this same group that put this weekend seminar on. I completed a few more of their seminars in the curriculum. And guess what? Like, my career kept going up. I kept earning more money. I had a great relationship with myself, and my friends. And I was always working on my relationship with my husband. That's a different story. But I saw so much value in it. And when I think about the times in my career where things weren't going so hot and I wasn't feeling great, they were the times that I was trying to just power through and muscle through and do things on my own. Hey, quick break for a second. If you are a sales leader who is ready for your next step up, and I'm talking about leading other sales leaders, becoming a director, a VP, even a CRO, then this is for you. I'm hosting a free workshop. You can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. This is for sales leaders who are in tech and are wanting to land jobs where you can earn anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year. And again, you can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. Okay, back to the show. When I think about when my dad passed away when I was 32 and my kids had just been born, like my daughter was a year old and my son was, she was a year plus few months, and my son was like 3 months old, 5 months old, if I can do math. Anyway, they were babies. My dad died. And, I'd had this whole experience before then of getting support and getting help and, self-development work. And that grief was so overwhelming, and it took me way too long to get help from a therapist. I mean, if I could go back in time and travel to myself, I'd say, hey, please I know that phone call feels like the heaviest thing in the world for you right now, and that it's just disorienting to even consider having that kind of conversation, because I remember feeling that. I remember feeling oh, it was so heavy. It was so heavy for me to even make a call. All of my energy was just spent on showing up to work every day. And then I would, come home and be dealing with this absolutely deafening grief for the loss of my dad. And then finally, I did it. I picked up the phone. I started to meet with a therapist, and she helped me. She helped me tremendously. And at a very, very vulnerable point in my life, I had postpartum depression. I was depressed that my dad had died. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how I got out of bed every day. It was painful and hard, and I'm about to start crying just remembering that period. But I went for so long, I let months and months go by where I didn't ask for help, and I thought I had to do it alone, right? No thanks, I can carry all these groceries myself, folks. I don't need anybody to hold the door. I don't need any support. I got this. I'm a strong, powerful woman, and I was raised to never need anybody, not need a man, not need anybody. Oh my gosh, that's true. My mom did say that. She said, don't ever make yourself so you have to rely on a man, Amy. Well, I didn't. And I paid for that. And she meant well. My mother loves me. Just like every mother that said that to all of my friends who say the same thing. They're like, yeah, my mom said that too. But this created this mentality of do it all myself, and I got this, and I'm strong enough, and all of the things. And I wasn't, and that's okay. It's okay to recognize when you've come up against something that you aren't prepared for. And nobody prepares you for the death of a loved one, by the way. I don't know a human being who can do that by themselves. So that was another point where I got help. And then, again, once that once that seal of therapy was broken for me, that the therapists weren't scary, because I didn't grow up with anybody going to therapy. Like, that wasn't a part of my upbringing, you know. Once that was really demystified, and the fear that I had about that was proven to be like for no good reason, I sought therapy at other points in my life, in my career. But the one thing I would offer is that I'm very proud of what I've done, but holy shit, I made some mistakes along the way. And if I had just had some help, if I'd had a coach, if I'd sought out a real mentor, and I had great people, great leaders that I worked with, several great leaders, but I never really went and found that mentor, that person that was like just for me, that I could trust, and I could really tell him the truth and not be worried about, you know, whatever the implications of that truth were. You know, whether it was I wanted to take a job or go work for such and such company. What did you think about that? Boy, I could have used some guidance a few times along the way. And in that journey, I came back to my first experience with coaching and getting a real coach, because coaching is a relatively newer concept in the business world, right? Like athletes, they've had coaches for forever, right? They'll coach you on everything. You look at a football team. I don't know how many coaches they have. Somebody knows. Somebody could tell me, but like lots and tons. And sometimes folks have like their own individual coach. So this concept of coaching for leaders and for business professionals and executives is relatively newer. It wasn't unusual for CEOs to have a coach. Wasn't unusual for C-suite to have a coach. In fact, you know, I read a beautiful book about a well-known coach who came up in Silicon Valley, you know, in the early 2000s. So here we are, you know, 25 years later, and coaching is now more available. My first experience with a coach, an executive coach, was when I was working with a newer leader. The leader that had hired me got restructured. The organization got restructured, and I got reassigned to a different team, and so I didn't get to stay with the person that hired me. And the gentleman that was leading me came to me and he said, you know, hey, what do you think about having a coach? And I said, I would love that. I see that you've got a coach. I would love to have someone just helping me. And this is, you know, I'm at that point, I'm like 20 years into my career. I'm, you know, in year, 8, 9 or 10 of leading people. This is the first time I'm getting exposure to having a coach to help me be a better leader and really be more intentional, more thoughtful. And so I did get to have a coach for about 6 months that the company paid for. And if your company offers something like this, oh my gosh, go get it. If they don't offer it, research a coach. And I understand I am a coach, but research a coach, find somebody that you want to work with and pitch it to your company to invite them to share in the cost for your development. They will get so much out of it. What I got out of my coach was, oh my gosh, the first thing that he had me do was it was basically a 360 review for me. It was like a survey. And in that survey, it went out, I selected who, but it went out to my boss and the people on my team, the leaders that were on my team, and then some of my colleagues as well that I chose. And I got that feedback back. And I'll never forget this. It was a phone call where we were reviewing what they said, and there was positive feedback and constructive feedback too, right? I get on the phone with my coach and he says, hey, what we're going to do today is go through these results. And I had a copy of them. I've already read it. I'd read it the week, few days before. So I'd had time to process it a little. And, I didn't know this coach very well. This was maybe my second or third time talking to him. And he said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. He said, we're going to go through this survey. And I already know that your brain has gone straight to all of the constructive feedback elements, and that's all you're thinking about. And that's true. And that's because it's human nature, right? It's human nature to focus on the negative, the threats. It's what keeps us alive, right? He said, that's not what we're going to talk about right now. He said, what I'm going to do is review all of the positive things that they had to say about you. Oh man, I was in a conference room. I went to a conference room. All the conference rooms have glass, right? Glass walls so that people can see in. And I turned the lights off, sitting in this conference room in the dark. So hopefully people walk by and they won't see me in this room, because I already know that I'm going to get emotional about this. Because it's hard. It's hard to look at yourself and face what's true. And, accept and deal with whatever story that you're telling yourself about whether you're good at what you do or you're bad at what you do, or, whatever those gremlins, that inner critics say. So he says, all right, we're going to talk about the positive stuff. And so he starts to read verbatim the positive things that all of these people had provided in this feedback mechanism that he gave me. And I remember just sitting there in this conference room and him reading these things out to me. He would ask, so how do you feel? And I was overwhelmed. I was sobbing by the time he got done talking about these really beautiful things that people said. And he forced me to look at that. He forced me to see that. And it was really eye-opening. It was so eye-opening to be forced to hear what you're doing well and what I was doing well, to be forced to listen to that and really take it in and let that land and absorb, because we just don't give ourselves enough credit for what we're doing well and what we're doing right and what's working, what's actually working, right? So that was this was a few years ago, and I still get emotional telling about this, because the impact was so significant to me. We're so trained to listen for the criticism. We're so trained to self-criticize, and to hear this genuine positive feedback really just knocked me over from a awareness standpoint. So of course I had many things that I needed to work on. And what was beautiful was that instead of me approaching that constructive feedback with I'm bad, or I'm wrong, or I'm not capable, or I'm not smart enough, all of the I'm nots, I came into it from this grounding of I'm doing a lot of things well. Here are some things that I can do better, right? And that little nuance had me approach the whole engagement and the interaction and the work that I did with my coach in a completely different light. Like the way that he saw me in that conversation, I had instant trust with this coach that I'd never spent time before. Like I had an intro call before that, like 20 minutes or something. And here I am just like full on conference room crying. I was raised that you don't ever cry. You certainly don't cry at work. Like, no way. And this man had me in a puddle. That work completely evolved me as a leader. And it changed how I interact. It elevated how intentional I was about how I interact with my team. It elevated how more focused I became about solving some of the challenges that we had in front of us that I hadn't really been dealing with. And that helped me significantly grow as a leader. As I've created my business, oh my gosh, I've never owned a business before. I've operated many businesses, $200 million businesses, $35 million annual revenue growth goals, like all those big numbers. You have too, right? But I'd never run my own business. My dad was an entrepreneur, but I was a kid. I didn't know what he did for real. I didn't understand it. And so 2 things that I've done in launching my business that have made a huge difference is, number one, I decided I wanted to have this podcast. And I'd known I wanted to have a podcast for a decade. A decade. Oh my gosh. I loved the thought of just like, you can have a radio show about anything you want to talk about. How cool is that? But I'd set on it and I didn't do it for, all the reasons that make sense if I tell it right now. But when I decided I wanted to do it, I found a coach, and her name's Allison Hare, and she's amazing. And she helped this podcast get born. So we went from like me having an idea to, within like 3 months, less than that, actually, I was like hitting record on my first episode, and here we are. We've got a podcast, and I get to have these conversations and be with you in this way. And I got help. I chose to invest in myself. I've come to realize and learn that I've worked so damn hard my whole career. And I've been fortunate to earn money, good money. And I've always been really, really hesitant to spend my money on myself. I'm taking care of everybody else. I got to pay for everything, right? That's, when it came to me, I was like, the last one to buy clothes, the last one to take care of like my needs. And finally I just said, you know what? I'm done living my life that way. What is all this money for if I'm not pursuing the things that I value and that are important to me? If I'm not trying to make my dreams come true? Yeah. So Allison helped me with that. And then I decided starting your own business is a journey again of like self-development. And in order to be a great coach and a great leader for my team, I needed another dose of leadership development and personal development. And so I hired another coach. I talked to my coach every couple of weeks. We work on development things. We work on business things. And she's the reason that my business is thriving and that I'm thriving. I hired a woman to help me, launch my coaching business in addition to personal development, right? So all of this was me just choosing and saying, I can either do it the hard way and take forever and risk that it's never going to happen, or I can choose to get some help and scare myself a little bit with how much money I'm spending to hire these professionals in the name of my life being the way I want it to be living a life that I love, and to have a business that I love, to be able to work with leaders that I absolutely love and adore. And I've made new friends in the podcasting space. Allison's one of them. And it's just opened up this world that didn't exist for me before. And the only way it got there was that I invested in myself and decided I wanted something. I wanted to make it happen. There were people who had done it before me that I knew could help me and guide me through it and help me get there. And that's how I chose to look at it. So if there's something you're considering doing, it could be career stuff, it could be not career stuff. We don't know how much time we have here. If there's a chance to go learn from somebody who's done what you've done before, you want to do before, and can help you get there, consider investing in that. If it's dance lessons, a trainer. Oh my gosh, I hired a trainer. I didn't even talk about that. Right. It's a matter of what do you want for yourself in your life? And there's another matter that's incredibly important, is to acknowledge that you are worthy. You are worthy. You're worthy of investing in you. You're worthy of chasing your dreams, and you're worthy of living a life that you love. So with that, I want to thank you so much for being with me today and for your time. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Go be the leader you know you are. See you next week. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining today. I know you're a super generous person, and a gift that you could give to someone you know, a friend, a colleague that you think would enjoy today's episode, would be to send them a text, share a link to this episode with them. I do produce this show myself, and every time you share it, it helps the podcast grow and it supports the work that I do here. Also, if you happen to be a sales leader who is ready to take your next step up into a leader of leaders role, whether it's via promotion or you're ready to go and get that new job at a new company, I'm talking about director roles, VP roles, even CRO roles in B2B tech, where you can earn $500,000 to $1 million or more. The workshop I'm giving is an hour-long workshop. It's totally free. You'll learn the process that I teach my clients on how to effectively position themselves, effectively network, and own their executive presence so they can land the job and get hired and promoted into these big sales leadership roles in B2B tech. If this sounds like you, come grab your spot. It's waiting for you at my website, amyevanscoaching.com, where you can unlock what's next for you.